Hi, and welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining me. And my name is Dave, and I'm going to jump right into this. Before I get started, I just need to put the disclaimer up here. We're working with a nutritional supplement, and that being the case, the FDA monitors to make sure that we're not making any claims around treating, curing, diagnosing, or preventing any illnesses or diseases. All right, so there you go. All right, so let's jump into the human anatomy here. This is a human cell, and in the middle of every cell you have the nucleus, and these little X's are the chromosomes, and every cell has its own nucleus. And there's over 100 trillion cells that make up the human anatomy. And so when we look at people, we're looking at their cells, but we don't say, hey, you have great looking cells today. We might say, hey, your skin looks great, or your hair, or your eyes look really clear and blue, or whatever the case might be. But what we're really saying is that the cells look great. And the thing that is going to determine whether or not our cells are functioning optimally or not is the DNA that's inside the chromosome. So here's a chromosome being uh, depicted and unraveled here, and these little lines here that look like steps in a ladder, that's the DNA. And where the colors come together, where they join together, that's a nucleic bond, and those two hemispheres just kind of join each other as DNA is being manufactured. Now I call DNA really the software of the cell, and we know that software runs the computer. It's running this computer and the programs. We have GoToMeeting, we might have Pages or the internet. That all takes software to run those programs. Well, the DNA is running the programs of the body via the cells from the nucleus. So that's the epicenter. And the programs are going to be your skin, hair, eyes, organs, and bones. Your brain, your thinking ability, your mental acuity. And so this is very essential. It's very important. Now, what we've learned is that the telomeres on the ends of the chromosome, being depicted in red here, and this is all fairly new research. It was awarded the Nobel Prize, so we know what's going on, but it's still fairly new. A couple decades, a little over a couple decades, and they've really started to understand more about what's going on the tips of the chromosomes, where these telomeres are. So where you're seeing the red, that would be the protective cap on the ends of the chromosomes that hold these nucleic bonds together. But what's happening is there's this degeneration process that's taking place, and the ends of the chromosomes are wearing away. They call them bases. So we're losing bases on the ends of the chromosome, the telomere. And as it loses those bases, as they degenerate away, these nucleic bonds are being separated. It's kind of like a fraying process. If you think of a plastic tip on a shoestring, and how as the plastic tip wears away, the shoestring starts to fray, that's what's happening to our DNA, and it makes that DNA non-workable. So it's like losing software. And we know that when we lose software in anything, that's not a good thing, right? It's going to cause problems. And so they've actually linked every symptom and every degenerative disease, every symptom of aging and every degenerative disease to the shortening of the telomere. So as it says along the bottom here, decreasing telomere length, that means as it gets shorter and shorter, we're losing more and more DNA, which causes malfunctions in the cells and the programs. So again, the programs are the skin, the hair, eyes, organs, and bones. We can see with this gentleman here, the skin doesn't look great. The muscle is atrophying. The skeletal system is atrophying. Hair, these types of things. Maybe his hearing and his eyesight. Every single one of those have been linked to the deterioration of the telomere. And that's the Nobel Prize winning research that was awarded that in 2009. Now, there's a couple ways that the telomeres are shortening that I'll cover here. One is lack of proper nutrients supporting a system within the chromosome that can repair that problem. It's called telomerase. And then also there are chemicals and additives and man-made manufactured foods that have these harmful substances in them. So our food, our air, and our water contain chemicals that actually accelerate the telomere shortening and cause it to happen faster. Also, stress can cause your telomeres to shorten very quickly. Now, some of the chemicals and things that they know and have proven would be like smoking, drinking alcohol, trans fats. Those contain chemicals. That's a man-made preservative to preserve foods. And so those chemicals that are contained in those things actually attack our telomeres and shorten them faster. So it's kind of like burning the candle at both ends. We're not getting the nutrition, but we're also throwing things at it and attacking it. And it's the first generation of children that won't outlive their parents. In April 2012, on the front page of USA Today, it said that children being born today, their telomeres pre-teenagers, their telomeres are 10 years shorter than they used to be in recent decades. So we're really accelerating that process, and we're not supporting telomerase. So there's a gene in the chromosome that produces an enzyme that repairs this telomere and the DNA that's inside. And it does that perfectly with the reproductive cells. So that way, when we're older, let's say like 30, 40, maybe even 50 years old, and you have a baby, the baby is inheriting cells that haven't aged with the DNA. There's no software, there's no DNA missing. And that's because telomerase keeps those cells running optimally. Even though the person's getting older, those cells are not, the actual sperm and egg cells. And so when the baby's born, it's born physiologically, it's born younger than the parent. And that's pretty cool if you think about it, because, we don't really do much deep thinking about that the baby inherits everything from the parents, and yet the baby comes out younger than the parent. They call those immortal cells. And I believe the body's intelligent, and it absolutely is making sure that the reproductive cells are staying optimal. Now, every cell contains this gene that produces telomerase. Now, Bill Andrews, and so if you look here at the chromosome, you can see how the tip of the chromosome is being built back out. So there's a damaged telomere with the DNA. Telomerase could actually repair it along with the DNA inside. Now, they knew that, but nobody could figure out how that's working. They couldn't see it under a microscope until Bill Andrews identified it in 1994 in humans. Prior to that, they were working with plants and how a plant can regenerate after it's almost dead. You start watering it again. If you forget to water it, it's going to die. So you haven't been supporting that gene to produce telomerase. That would be basal cell. And when you start watering it again, giving it the fuel it needs, it starts to repair the plant. And we've seen that. I think most people have, probably killed a house plant or come close to it, and you start watering it again, and that plant that's almost dead comes back to full life, and it reversed the symptoms of aging. Well, that was this gene that produced telomerase. And so Bill Andrews believed that, and science also knew from the reproductive cells that is taking place, but nobody could identify it. And Bill Andrews did in the humans, in human skin cells. Just in the human cells. Then he started working with human skin cells and was able to activate it. He invented the equipment and was able to induce telomerase to be produced in the human skin cells in a petri dish. And it grew the telomere back. And the skin cells started behaving like the reproductive cells. And he was awarded the runner-up inventor of the year for that. It was a very small group of researchers, and there was only about 50 articles written up worldwide. So it was a very small select group, but still that was a pretty big breakthrough. And then Harvard got involved, and they actually worked with mice and living mice and were able to induce telomerase. And this is ABC News reporting on that.
And now, eternal youth. Is it in a cage around the corner? News tonight of a breakthrough for some pioneering mice. But we always wonder, what does a fountain of youth for rodents reveal for humans? Here's Sharon Alfonsi reporting.
I feel tremendous.
In the movie Cocoon, it's a swimming pool that turns back the clock for a group of senior citizens. But now researchers have found a way not just to stop, but reverse the aging process. The key is something called a telomere. We all have them. They're the tips or caps of your chromosome, seen here in yellow. This is what it looks like in a young adult. But as you grow older, the telomeres become damaged and frayed, and as they stop working, we start aging, experiencing things like hearing and memory loss. Scientists took mice who were prematurely aged, added an enzyme, and essentially turned their telomeres back on. You can see it before the enzyme, after.
Their brain function improved, their fertility was restored. It was a remarkable reversal of the aging process.
Look at this picture. The mouse on the right has bad skin, gray hair, and is balding, but the one on the left had its telomeres flipped back on.
And you could see that essentially you now have a dark coat color, that the hair is restored, that the coat has a nice healthy sheen to it.
Even more dramatic, the change in brain size. This is before. The mice had 75% of a normal brain, like a patient with severe Alzheimer's. But after the telomeres were reactivated, the brain returns to normal size.
So this was pretty amazing thing that was accomplished here, because we're not working with a controlled environment anymore in a petri dish. We're working with living mammals, these mice, and and we're mammals as well, and that's why they use mice. And what they saw in these mice that was so fascinating and really showed what the possibilities are is when they induced the telomerase, let's say that this is the damaged DNA in the mice, they actually saw the telomerase rebuild the DNA and repair it and restore it, and the telomere as well. And prior to that, they didn't know that that was a possibility. So it really showed the power of the body to be able to heal itself, because this is a natural occurring thing that takes place within the body. We're just getting further and further away from supporting it. We're as far off from supporting telomerase being activated as we ever have been. So now this is taking place down in the middle of the cell in the nucleus. And when I heard Bill Andrews lecturing on this in 2009, this is really where it really woke me up to that's the core foundation of our health. And if we could help support that, that would change the landscape of human health. Now, as the DNA changed here on the ends of the telomere or on the ends of the chromosome, down in the middle of the cell, the programs started to change. The hair, the skin, the eyes, the organs and bones, everything was reversed. Not just what you can see on the outside. Even their bone density was restored. Their cognitive ability came back. Their activity level was restored. Their cardiovascular system was all reset. Like Dr. Ronald DeFino said, it was a remarkable observation of the reversal of the aging process. So we know that we can, there are people in society, like let's say these two mice are the same age chronologically, but now this one's younger physiologically. But let's just say, okay, they're both 40 years old. Well, this one looks like it's 60 and this one looks like it's 40. We've seen that in society with humans, right? And let's say they're 60. Well, this one looks like it's 60, but this one looks like it's 40. So we've seen people who are younger who look older, and we've seen people who are older who look younger. So we can't say we age because of how long we've been alive. And now, with the empirical data and the Nobel Prize and knowing this information, we know that it's the length of our telomere that determines how old we look and how old we feel and the degenerative issues that develop. So Bill Andrews, by 2009, had spent over $30 million and over 304,000 tests trying to find compounds that you and I could consume. And he found 8. They call them a hit. And these are activators that actually induce the telomerase to repair the DNA and the telomere in the human skin cells in vitro. The only problem with these 8 is they were all too toxic. They couldn't find anything natural or anything even safe on a pharmaceutical side. And so they were still at square one with being able to facilitate this in humans. And that brings us to the collaboration between Bill Andrews and John Anderson. And I've been working with John Anderson since 2005. And he's a world-renowned master herbalist. He's formulated nutritional products for over 600 companies. He's formulated for over 40 years now. It's his passion. He believes it's his purpose for being alive and his destiny. He created over 2,500 different health products for other companies. And then he started his own company in 2002 because of the compromise that was taking place. Every formulation he submitted to companies that hired him, he said that they compromised the quality of them, and there's not one exception. Also, John Anderson formulated the MREs for the military. He's known as the mineral man by his colleagues. And he came up with a proprietary way of working with plants and botanicals and formulating with them that really became his expertise and kind of set him apart from everybody else. And that's why Bill Andrews was introduced to John Anderson by Peter Greenlaw. And Peter Greenlaw is a mutual friend of mine as well. And he convinced Bill to bring John up to speed on telomeres and telomerase and see if he could do something with the botanical world. And so that's exactly what happened. I call it science meets wellness. And what happened is John got really excited. He said, I would have formulated for this a long time ago. I just didn't know all of this about the telomeres and the important role that they played. So being introduced to Bill Andrews was next level for John. He felt like he had contributed everything to humanity through his nutritional products and through Isagenesis. And he realized at this point, wow, maybe that was all just preparation for this, because I've never been more excited. I'm as excited as I've ever been. And he built a brand new lab based on what Bill had taught him. And they wrote up a contract, and he started sending formulations over to Bill's lab. And this is what Bill had to say about it in a documentary.
We'd seen for natural products, and we were pretty excited. It was the 11th compound we tested out of the first 15 samples that John Anderson sent us, and it was a hit. So we use the term hit in science a lot. So when we screen a lot of samples, we'll screen like thousands of samples at a time. But, I have to confess, at first we thought, wow, was he extremely lucky? Because we thought, how could he only be asking us to screen 15 samples? After screening thousands without a hit, we need a lot more samples than 15 if we're expecting to get a hit. But he got a hit. So he sends us another 15, and we get another hit.
Okay, so let's just review this. When John sent over his first 15, this is a graph that Bill uses with his equipment that he invented to watch for telomerase induction in the human skin cells. So we know that these turned on telomerase or induced it in the human skin cells, but they were all too toxic. So John sends 15 over and he gets a hit. It actually induced the telomerase in the human skin cells. And Bill says in the video, I have to admit, we felt like he was extremely lucky because we tried thousands and never have gotten a hit from a natural ingredient. But he sends 15 more and he gets another hit. So at this point, he's leaving a voicemail, but John was still in his lab. He was sending ingredients over every day. And within another 80 attempts, they get these 4 hits from all natural ingredients. So as you can imagine, Bill's pretty excited at this point and gets a hold of John and wants to know how he's getting these natural ingredients to do that. And he wanted him to publish the papers and write it all up. And John said, no, this is going to remain proprietary for our company, and we'll run this product through our marketing program and we'll get it out to the masses. And Bill said this is the most exciting time of his life and that he's never been more excited. He said, John Anderson's a genius. They've tried these ingredients over here and they didn't work, but they worked for John. And he said, you could go to the vitamin store and take every single one of the ingredients that are listed on the bottle. They'll never produce telomerase. There's something in there that's negating. There's ways that John formulates them and symbiotically gets them to work together, the phytonutrients in a plant. And there's no way to reverse engineer it. He said that with all the phytonutrients that are in those plants and the ones that he could be selecting, there's easily 27,000 different combinations he could make. And so he called John Anderson a genius, and he says the most knowledgeable man he's ever worked with when it comes to working with natural ingredients. And so the product, they actually found 12 hits. You're looking at 7 of them there. And they released it in August of 2011. And it's been an exciting journey ever since, pioneering this. And as we've been taking the product, and when it was released in August 2011, they still were working on the product to improve it. And they got a second generation. And then they had a special announcement about a third generation where John did something that Bill said would be impossible to find from a natural botanical, find hits that registered on his graph that were this big. And Bill was super excited about this. And he says, I'm just not going to doubt John Anderson anymore. Then they released that. That was third generation. And then John found hits that were bigger than that. And he found many more. And then they released that into what we are taking now, a 4th generation. And we call it a telomere supplement, a telomere support product. And so this is fascinating news. Now, and it's all been vetted by Bill Andrews, one of the world's leading researchers in this research. And Bill Andrews, after the product had been out for some time, he was interviewed and he says, this is a phenomenon. We're seeing results from so many people, so many different results. He says, it's a phenomenon. I've never seen anything like it. And I was interviewing Bill on a phone call interview, and he said that he believes, in his opinion, that we'll get the Nobel Prize eventually for Isagenesis because of the results and the impact that it's having on human health. He said that will take some time, but still, the results are absolutely worthy of it. Now, let me go into some observations for you here. This is Bill's wife, Molly, and they're ultra marathon runners, so they'll run 100-mile distances all at one time. It's a real test of endurance. And she ran this race 2 years earlier, the ultra the high, and she didn't make it to the finish line. It's 138 miles long. And what's even more difficult is it starts at 13,000 feet, goes up to 18, back to 14, and then back to 18, and then back down. And you only get 60 hours to get to the finish line. So if you don't get there in 60 hours, then you can't say you completed the race. And so she didn't make it the first time she tried it. But then Isagenesis came out and she ran the race, and she's the 7th person to cross the finish line in under 60 hours, and she was the first female. So she said, absolutely, the product had everything to do with it. Then a year later, Bill Andrews ran it, and he had been on the product for over a year at this point, and he's the oldest person to now accomplish that race. They did a documentary on him running it. He did it in just over 50 hours. And also, he started breaking records he set back when he was 40, for some reason, the product seems to increase the endurance and the recovery and just the whole stamina, both physically and mentally, and then the recovery time. And he said, I broke a record I set back when I was 40 years old. I ran the same race, and I beat it by 50 minutes. And I was 20 years older. I did a meeting at a dental office, and Amy Sauter was there, and she immediately put her father-in-law on it right here. And they were being pressured to put him into a nursing center because it was just so difficult, when they're having a hard time. And it's a lot of stress being a caregiver. And he's 82 years old right here in this first picture. So she gets him on the product. Here he is at 83. Here he is at 85. I was just with him earlier this year, and he's 86 now, and he looks great. He drives himself around. He's doing normal things. He does a lot of charity work during the week. He went to an expo with us. He did some meetings with me and shared his testimony. He's working out, and he's really fit, and he looks great at 86. This is Bob Sheridan. He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame. He's a boxing announcer, and he's known as the Colonel. He's famous around the world. And he was sent home from the hospital because they couldn't do anything for him. His cardiovascular system was just too degenerated. There wasn't enough strength, even in the heart, to do the surgery that he needed. And so he wouldn't have recovered from the operation. And my friends Dennis and Sharon, they get him on the product. And 2 months later, they invite me into his home to do a meeting. And so I've done 2 meetings at Bob's home. Really cool guy. And within 6 months, Fight News interviewed him. And they want to know, what in the world is going on with you, Bob? You look great. We thought we were going to lose you. And what happened? And he says, my wife, Annie, she got me on this Isagenesis, and it works on a cellular level. And this is what it's been doing for me. And he lists everything. And his heart ejections actually went into the normal range. And then here he is at 72 years old, sitting at home in his recliner. And they actually did the surgery there that they wouldn't do before. His heart got strong enough. It was in the high normal. And they did an 8-hour surgery on him. He feels great. He's announcing boxing matches all over the world. He's doing the galas. And he actually got permission from the Boxing Federation to talk about the product with anybody that he wanted to, any of the athletes. This is Minnie, and I was there when we took this picture. She had been on the product for 1 week, and I had gone out to Minnesota to do a meeting with Liddy, and this is her mother. She's laying flat, and she had that hunchback, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame type thing, and her chin was stuck to her chest. She couldn't look up at you. She had to like bend her knees. She used a walker. You couldn't have a normal conversation with her. She's 80 years old right there. This is her 5 months later. And it was just absolutely amazing to see the miraculousness of the human body. I think it was Thomas Edison said that, the doctor of the future will educate the patient in the care of the human frame and anatomy through proper nutrition. And so we can see this is nutrition. We're not making any claims around curing anything. We're just feeding the body and turning on those systems that have been lying dormant and being suppressed. So here she is at 80, and her chin was always like that. And then here she is at 83, and you can see her chin is up off of her sternum, and she was walking without a walker. I've had normal conversations with her, and her husband had amazing results and very active. And they got couple of the year about a year later in Minnesota. Now, this one I love. Emily here on Facebook is saying, who knows Kathy? Because I have some people that just don't believe that this is her. And they don't look like the same person, right? And you can understand people's skepticism. And there was all these comments that were going on, and people were tagging Kathy. Well, Kathy finally showed up, and she said, yes, in fact, these are of me. The first one was for my first IsoBody challenge with Isagenesis. And the last one is me from November 16th at Fitness America in Las Vegas at 69 years old. I just turned 70 in May. It just proves what great nutrition, some Isagenesis, and the right fitness coaching can achieve. And people just kept commenting. They were like, wow. And there's like over 500 comments on it now. And she eventually tagged me, and that's how I found out about it. We're friends on Facebook. And she quotes Bill Andrews. She says Dr. Paul Anderson, but she meant Bill Andrews. When he shares, long telomeres, live long. Short telomeres, you're screwed, right? So the longer your telomeres, the healthier you are. The shorter they get, the more problems you're going to have with your health. So why not do all we can to improve the quality of our life? And then she mentions me, Mechanic to Millionaire. And then she says, I really do feel like I've been aging backwards. And what else could I possibly give the credit to? Thank you, John Anderson. And thank you, Bill Andrews. So very cool, right? 69 years old. Isn't that awesome? I love this one right here. I'm working with Karen right now, and she is just on fire. She's going to change the world and help pioneer this. And you can see just in 3 days, I met her on Thursday. We did a meeting in Vegas, and she showed up, and this is the picture that she took on that day. And then this was 2 days later. She got started on the product that night. We had some, and she got started on it. And there she is 2 days later, and here she is 3 days later, from the 3rd to the 6th. Isn't that amazing? And I've been watching this transformation. It's been just a little over a month now. Look at her 30-day picture. So not even quite 30 days. And just she's at a networking event here, and it's just amazing to watch this transformation. This is why I do what I do. I really look at this as a divinely inspired company, product. What I'm doing, I feel, is my purpose. It's part of my destiny and helping to transform people's lives. And I just love this company. I love this vehicle, and I love what I'm able to help facilitate in other people just by educating them. It's the product and the body that's doing it. The body is being supported by nutrition, and this is a specialized nutrition that has been formulated between John Anderson and Bill Andrews. So here's my results, and just to give you a little bit of background on me, I've been with the company now, it's been 12 years last month. I got started on John Anderson's nutrition, and I was an athlete all through high school and just always fit. And at 30, I think I was 36 here, I just, no matter what I did, I couldn't lose the weight. I was riding my bike to work and back. That was 100 miles every 5 days. And then I would run the stadiums at the college football stadium, and I was working out as well. I lost 6 pounds, and it completely stopped. And at that point, it was just pure willpower. I was getting tired and hungry all the time. And that's when we were introduced to Isagenesis. My wife actually won some product at an expo. That's how I got on it. She won it. And I was praying for something to show up in my life. I just was so miserable. And when the gentleman started me on it, he said, "You're exercising like a madman. You don't need to exercise that hard. And over 80% of your nutrition comes from, or over 80% of your results comes from your nutrition. So just back off on the exercising for this first month, and let's see what happens to you." I lost 27 pounds in 25 days. That's my personal results. And these products addressed a lot of things for me. My energy went through the roof. I haven't had coffee or soda or Rockstar energy drink in 12 years. I don't crave ice cream and Snickers bars. I've only had 3 of them. My body went alkaline, and those things are acidic, and acidic bodies crave acidic food. So just by getting the right nutrition in my body and cleansing out the metabolic waste and the toxicity, my body went alkaline. And the energy has been through the roof for 12 years now, and I'm just so excited about this nutrition. Well, I started exercising and working out and going to the tanning salon, as you can see. And I got back to my high school weight. I lost 53 pounds in 8 weeks. That was my results, my personal results. It's different for everybody, right? But that was my results. And I wasn't working out as hard in that last picture as I was in the first picture. So the nutrition had everything to do with it. And then Isagenesis comes out. And man, I just love youthful aging. Like Kathy Tang said, I really do feel like I'm aging backwards. I am now back to my junior and high school wrestling weight. I would say that was probably the time of my life when I was in the best shape. And I'm in better shape now than I was then. No question. Physically, mentally, spiritually, everything about me. I'm 49 years old. It's just been an amazing journey, and I love pioneering this and helping people to get this information so that they can make better choices for themselves and have a better life. You can only operate at the level of the fuel you're putting into your body. You can't operate better than what you're putting in to fuel your body. So I call this unparalleled nutrition, and there's nothing like it. I tried everything. I was a supplement junkie. I would eat salads with lemon squeezed over it. I'd eat tuna out of the can day after day. I mean, and it just wasn't working. And I've been using these products for 12 years now. I haven't missed a day. And I love sharing this with people because it puts that optimal nutrition, which I believe is unparalleled. And we even have clinicals around it, which I'm not going to go into this presentation. I want to keep it short, but the clinicals are blowing them away. Even the Mayo Clinic wants to be involved with us because of what's happened with our clinicals that have actually been published in peer-reviewed medical journals like PubMed. So anyways, it's exciting, and people are getting their quality of life back, and that's the thing that matters most. So after using the products for about 2 years, I was feeling young enough to go back into motocross. And I had never ridden on a motocross track, but I had dirt bikes and I loved them. But I never rode on a motocross track. And then I gave up motocross and haven't done it for over 20 years. Haven't even thought about it. But now all of a sudden I'm thinking about it again. And so I went out and bought a dirt bike, and I had it's a bucket list. I've had so much fun doing that. And without Isagenesis, there's no way I would have never even have thought of it again. But I just, that aging backwards is getting me to do things that I was doing when I was a teenager. And I was outperforming and am outperforming the teenagers that are on the track. At 49, I'm outperforming them. I'm on the track longer. I recover faster. And I took a third place in a race and then a second place. And then I had an accident where I shattered this leg right here in motocross. And they had to bolt this thing to make to the bone so that the pieces wouldn't fall out while I was waiting for the specialist to get into town to fix it. And after he fixed me all up, it's called a pilon fracture. I told him my goal was to be back to motocross in about 3 months, and I wanted to be running stadiums. And he just kind of gave me that look like a doctor would. And he said, well, let me just educate you. You have the worst kind of fracture you can have. You have little pieces in your bone that's like shattered, like glass. And for those pieces to come together and gain enough strength, it could take up to a year before you even stand on your leg. And so I knew he was basing my results based on what other people were eating and the results they were getting when he fixed, when he would set their bones and do all the stuff that he did on the surgery. But I knew that I had something special here. And so I just continued to take the products while I was in bed. And in 3 months to the date, you guys, 3 months from when I had the accident, I ran stadiums. And that's not normal. In fact, a PA said that that's just an impossibility. I mean, people can beat the odds, but for the bone to repair from a pilon fracture, all those little pieces, it's impossible for the bone to heal that quickly, to hold and sustain that kind of pressure. And she said what's even more amazing is the muscle. You didn't muscle atrophy. I was in bed for 6 weeks, and then in the wheelchair for 2 weeks, and then in this for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, I'm running stadiums. It was a total of 3 months, and it's just it's incredible. And I saw that other people were having results like this with trauma and things like that, and with the repairing of the body. So I knew that I was going to have faster results, but like this, I had no idea. This was really awesome, and I back to motocrossing and just back to having fun. So this will be recorded on YouTube if you want to share it with other people and get it out there to people that you love, people that you know, people that are praying for something in their lives. There are so many people that appreciate this information, and there are some who said, I wish I would have known about this 6 months ago or a year ago. I could have had one of my parents taking it, or somebody they loved. So with that, just get back with the person that got you here. They'll help you get started on the product and get you going on it. So thanks for joining me on the webinar. Bye, everyone.